Of all the food safety conversations that deserve more urgency than they receive, the one about infant formula contamination may be the most consequential. The reasoning is straightforward. Infant formula is consumed exclusively, or near exclusively, by a population at the most vulnerable developmental window of their lives, the first months of existence, during which the brain undergoes its most rapid growth. Neural connections are established at rates that will never be replicated, and the regulatory systems governing gene expression, immune function, and metabolic programming are being set in ways that have lifelong implications. What a child is exposed to during this window matters more, biologically, than at almost any other period of life. And what third-party testing has consistently found in commercial infant formulas is not reassuring. The 2021 Congressional Subcommittee report on heavy metals in baby food examined commercial products across multiple categories and found detectable levels of arsenic, lead, cadmium, and mercury in products from major manufacturers, including major formula brands. The findings were not framed as acute poisoning risks. The concentrations found are not high enough to cause immediate illness in most cases. They were framed correctly as chronic low-level exposure concerns in a population for whom no safe level of exposure to these neurotoxins has been established. Inorganic arsenic has no established safe threshold for developmental neurotoxicity. Lead has no established safe threshold for children at any developmental age. Cadmium interferes with zinc metabolism and accumulates in kidneys, where it can cause damage that manifests decades after the exposure window. The developing nervous system is not simply more sensitive to these substances than the adult nervous system, it is vulnerable in qualitatively different ways. Heavy metals absorbed during critical neurodevelopmental windows can disrupt the migration of neurons to their correct cortical positions, interfere with the formation of synaptic connections, alter myelination of neural pathways, and modify the epigenetic programming of genes that govern stress response and cognitive function. These are not effects that reverse when exposure stops. Research on lead exposure in early childhood has documented measurable IQ reduction, increased impulsivity, and elevated crime rates in exposed birth cohorts. Outcomes that persist into adult life and can be detected at blood lead levels previously considered safe. The carbohydrate composition of many commercial formulas raises a separate concern. Human breast milk's primary carbohydrate is lactose, a disaccharide that is efficiently metabolized and provides energy without a significant glycemic spike. Many commercial formulas, particularly store-brand and value-tier products, use corn syrup solids as the primary carbohydrate source instead of lactose, because corn syrup solids are cheaper and easier to work with in manufacturing. The concern is not acute metabolic harm. Corn syrup solids provide adequate energy, but the longer-term implication for taste preference programming. Sweet taste preferences established in infancy through formula feeding have been documented to persist and influence food choices in later childhood and adolescence, contributing to preference patterns associated with higher sugar intake throughout the diet. The FDA's Closer to Zero Action Plan, announced in response to the 2021 report, set targets for reducing heavy metal contamination in infant and toddler foods, but set them as aspirational targets rather than enforceable limits, and allowed timelines measured in years. For parents navigating formula choices today, the regulatory protection they might reasonably expect is substantially weaker than the marketing imagery of healthy infants suggests.